Welcome to Gen Z on Leadership. I'm Gabriel Gary, the host, and today I have on the show teacher and candidate for Porter County Council, Bob DeRuntz. DeRuntz has been a teacher in Duneland schools for 30 years. DeRuntz has an impressive record of being an outstanding teacher. He won the Duneland School Corporation Teacher of the Year in 2021, and in 2022, he was a top 10 finalist for Indiana Teacher of the Year. Most recently, he was named Indiana Outstanding Teacher of American History in 2023. DeRuntz serves as chairman of negotiations for the Duneland Teachers Association and is on the board of directors for the Porter County Parks and Recreation. Thank you for being on the show with me today, Mr. DeRuntz.
You bet, Gabe. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and talk about my campaign for the Porter County Council and give people an opportunity just to learn a little bit more about my background and hopefully earn their trust to help lead Porter County going forward.
Absolutely. And I think it's really interesting getting to talk to you because I've interviewed politicians before, and this is your first, public office run, and I've seen a lot from the business to lawyer standpoint, and it's good to see meet a teacher because I've actually interviewed, the teachers as well, and it's good to see somebody, transitioning into public office. But I just want to, get started. You've been a teacher for a long time. What inspired you now to decide to run for Porter County Council?
Well, I have had the great opportunity to have a career for 29 years in the classroom where I truly get to make a difference every single day in my students' lives and work really hard to make a difference in my colleagues' lives. So, as I've gotten more involved in politics and thinking about how I may want to serve in an elected capacity, the county council appealed to me in part because of some of the work that I do here for the Teachers Association as chairman of negotiations and negotiating contracts with the school corporation and a lot of that financial work I do. But working on the county council, that's an evening job. So it's especially appealing to me because I can still teach. I truly love to teach history. Having spent 29 years preparing my students for a better future, I honestly feel like it's a great segue where I can work to serve the community and help to lead Porter County to a successful future now as well.
Absolutely. And this is your first political run. I was just wondering, through the campaign, whether it be door knocking or phone calls, what has been some of the obstacles that you've noticed, and how have you been able to overcome those obstacles?
Well, I wouldn't honestly say that I've had obstacles, and maybe that's in part because of just a lot of preparation. I've been involved with several campaigns in recent years, door knocking for other candidates and working in their campaigns. So I've really been busy taking notes, thinking, you know what, if I ever run for office, I want to have an idea of what I feel works well, what's a good use of time, time well spent, what resonates with voters. I filed an exploratory committee last summer just to be able to wrap my head around all the campaign finance reports because I'd have to submit one last year. So that's a real complicated process that you got to wrap your head around. So I wanted to start early so I can figure out how that all works. So when I started my campaign after filing in January, I kind of felt like I've been running for office for months and have been really preparing to do that in terms of organization. So, in terms of, hurdles, I haven't had a lot of hurdles, but I will say the challenge is if you're really going to run for office and you're serious about putting the work in to win a countywide race, it takes a lot of time, a lot of time. I've made my initial focus labor unions. My dad was a steel worker, so I grew up in a union home. I'm the co-president of the Duneland Teachers Association. So my first goal was to meet as many of our local labor halls as possible and earn their trust and hopefully get in front of their membership. And I've done that. So I've been in front of about 20 local union labor halls, talking to 150 iron workers, 150 steel workers, laborers,
Mm.
introducing myself, explaining what my campaign is, and ideally walking out of the door with them thinking, I like that guy. He's got a lot of great leadership experience. I could put my trust in him on the county council. Certainly in this regard, he would represent organized labor well, responsible bidding ordinances, and those ways in which county council men and women help to represent labor organizations having a fair shot at getting county contracts. So I've been busy doing that 2 or 3 nights a week, doing that, running my own events, going to pancake breakfasts. You know how that is, pancake breakfast and fish fries, and continuing to do volunteer work. So as many things as I have going, if I wasn't organized, then I'd be missing stuff. So honestly, any advice I would give to anybody considering running for office is you create a calendar on a Google spreadsheet and get organized, because your calendar becomes your campaign. So that would be the biggest challenge, I think. But if you're organized, then you can overcome that for sure.
Yeah, just talking with many people running for public office and politicians. So yeah, the campaign schedule, I mean, it is absurd.
It
Uh,
is. It
yeah,
is.
and if you're running for, especially, even state level, I mean, you got to traverse the entire state. So it's I'm sure even, locally it's an insane schedule. But I definitely want to know. So of course you've worked on other campaigns, but you've been a teacher for a long time. And how do you think those skills, specifically in the classroom, are going to help transfer over into the Porter County Council?
Well, I think they're directly transferable. I think if you talk to any, even if you talk to a student and if you talk to teachers, I think great teaching begins with relationships. And honestly, I think success at any level doing anything is built on building good relationships with the people that you work with. So when it comes to my students, the first and foremost thing I want my students to know, even before I delve into the history and the significance of it and why it matters and making every effort to make it relevant to them, I want them to know that I care about them. Because if they know that I care about them, then they're more likely to care about what I'm trying to do. So building that genuine relationship and listening, right? And not only listening to them where they feel heard, but being responsive. And I think those things are essential for any elected official, especially today, where you can speak with your constituents, you genuinely listen. You may or may not be able to find a specific solution for them. You may or may not agree with them, but that's not always possible. But what certainly is possible is people absolutely always need to feel heard and validated. And I think those skills from working in the classroom, working with students, building genuine relationships, being willing to talk to each other and not just at each other is essential if we're going to truly find solutions to our challenges today. So I think those relationships are directly relatable, and I'll take those to the county council.
hmm And I just want to, go on to, of course, you've been a teacher for almost 30 years now, so you've definitely gotten to see young people progress over that time period. And I want to know, you see the statistics, young people they don't have as much pride in their country, and they're not, as proud to be Americans. And how have you seen that political and civic engagement, decrease in young people now? And how do you think we can get more young people more engaged politically and in their local and state government as well?
Yeah, having taught for 30 years, that's a long timeline to see. It really ebbs and flows. It's not really just a now relative to when I started. As
Mhm.
I've taught for 30 years, there's almost like groups of students that come through, and it might be the students and their activism and their desire and interest to be more involved. Maybe it's just the times as well and a combination of those things. But it ebbs and flows. Sometimes you have a larger group of students who are really engaged and really active and involved. They go to a lot of events. They really want to talk about politics. They want to get involved in politics. Sometimes that's more, sometimes it's less. But I think in terms of the moment and now, I think at least I'll say, I see fewer students involved in politics and wanting to be involved in it at all, like either in school with other groups of students or on a local or a national level. And I think that might be in part because the last 5 years have been tough. They've been really hard. And I tell my students all the time, I say, listen, man, if you feel like it's been heavy, well, guess what? It has, right? I'm 52, and these have been maybe some of the five most challenging years that we have faced as a nation in my lifetime, from global pandemics to social issues to political unrest to economic challenges. It seems like we can't turn on the news very often where you don't have a new challenge coming down the pipe. So I think for them, it's been exhausting. It's been exceedingly stressful because of the volume of all those challenges coming at them. Like that's the norm. And it's, at least I have a long enough life where I realize, it's not necessarily the norm. So politics, especially, have become so divisive, right? We've become very tribalized. We've become very polarized. We don't talk to each other. We talk at each other. And in an age when they grow up with their cell phone in front of them, on, when you talk in, the news that is so polarized and the internet, I think they probably feel if they can disengage and just find some things to do that bring them peace and happiness and not more stress. So maybe that's why students today are a little less engaged, but they're not entirely disengaged. They really aren't, and they're really adaptable and they've weathered the storm. And I know that I have a lot of students that will go on to become really very involved and really, really make a difference in whatever field they choose to make their focus. And I hope to instill in them the fact that if you find something that you truly enjoy doing, right? What's your purpose? What do you feel like is a purpose where you can make a difference and you have a passion for that? Then you can make a difference. And I know that I'm going to have doctors, I'm going to have mechanics, I'm going to have welders, and then there's going to be some politicians that go out there and do some really great things leading with positivity because they've seen every day now how divisive and destructive, division and fear and politics can be. So, one of the reasons why I chose to run for office is because I know there's a better way. That, if you want to have leadership that genuinely works to find solutions, to bring people together, if you looked at my website, you'd see on the bottom of every page it says we are better together. And I truly feel that way. And you need leaders who will inspire people to want to do better than we currently are and to bring people together, not to use our differences to divide us for short term gain, but to bring us together to find real solutions, even though it's not easy. So I decided, you know what, you got to get off the couch sometimes. And you gotta sometimes model that like I tried to in the classroom. So I'm gonna try to model that in the community.
Hmm. And like you mentioned, politics is a very divisive topic, especially today. And on the council, it's most likely a bipartisan. I think it is bipartisan right now, but it
Oh
will
yeah.
most likely. So how will you use the power of bipartisanship when working? You touched on this, but how will you use that when working with county council members?
Well, much like I've said, I think building relationships, and for me, it's a seven-person council. A lot of people don't know what the county council does, so I've had a lot of questions. Hey, what would you do if you win a seat on the council? And the council is the fiscal governing body of the county. So we make all those decisions as to how we're going to invest our resources and our revenues into the community, right? From roads to public safety to the Porter County parks to trying to pay our employees well so you can attract and retain quality people because our county government is only as good as the people who run it. So you want to be sure that you're paying them a livable wage and they want to continue to serve. So building relationships with my seven, I guess would be six other colleagues on the council. Currently, it is bipartisan. Bipartisan. There are four Republicans and three Democrats currently, and you got to work together, right? You're not always going to agree, but if you can have genuine relationships where those relationships are built on talking to each other and listening, then you can truly achieve more together. And it's not just the council. The county depends on the three commissioners who are kind of like mayors of the county, right? They guide the county. The commissioners and the council working effectively together allows the county to achieve more for our constituents, right? In terms of all those things, the infrastructure that we provide, the services, et cetera. So honestly, bringing what I think I have done well for 29 years at every level of leadership, which is building genuine relationships, working hard to listen, and then being responsive to truly work together to come up with, real practical solutions to real challenges, not just the clickbait that you see that causes so much division, but really drilling down on those things that we can find solutions for, working together to do that. Yeah.
Mhm. And you mentioned a little bit of this earlier, but I just want to talk about your schedule. You balance handling being on the Parks Board and the Duneland Board of Teachers. How do you balance that out, and how will you continue to do that? Being a councilman as well. Communicating with your constituents, doing your day job, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a busy schedule. I serve as the co-president of the Duneland Teachers Association. I also serve as a legislative liaison for the Indiana State Teachers Association. In that role, I communicate and work with our local state legislators, senators and Republicans on public education policy and funding, organized labor issues as well. So yeah, I got quite a few irons in the fire, but those are all things that I manage. I manage well. And when it comes to the Porter County parks, I've got such a passion for our parks, and in part because one of those ways in which I make my courses engaging and is through experiential learning. So I teach a summer history class called Trailbound, And every summer, I take a group of students to a different part of the country. We wilderness backpack in our national parks, and then we study on site at those historic sites. So it's incredibly engaging. It's living history. It's experiential learning. We camp everywhere we go. So there's like layers of education for the students who just don't do a lot of that in many cases. So, I have a real affinity for our trails and our parks, and as a county councilman, I'm going to want to have a focus on investing in those things as a social infrastructure investment in our county for our constituents. So, the health and well-being of our community is their ability to be engaged outside, a place to come together, right? So, a
Mhm.
positive investment. So, it is very busy currently serving on the board of directors for the Porter County Parks and Recreation. Just had a meeting last night where, we were able to, make some decisions that's going to continue to move us forward well together. And for me, it'll be almost a seamless transition. Regrettably, I'm going to have to step off of the board of directors. As serving as a county councilman, I won't also be able to serve on the board of directors. So I'll have to step off that board. So serving on the council will replace that. But I would be in no better position to advocate for our county parks because I know really well what our challenges are. I know really well the things that the county could do to enhance the programming and the infrastructure our parks provide our community. So I'd be the one then voting on that, right? So I'd have a direct pipeline between what I know now about our county parks and what I know we can do to improve them.
Absolutely. And my final question is, what leadership advice do you have for young people wanting to get involved in leadership, specifically the education field and, community leadership as well in politics?
Yeah, my advice would be to always be authentic. I think being authentic resonates with people. I think they respect that. You are who you are. I think be honest to yourself about what you find, you know, interest in, and make that a part of your life. And always be honest. I was in a candidate forum just a couple of weeks ago over at the Expo Center, and I finished that candidate forum by telling, the audience that I will always serve with honesty. I will always be responsive, and I will always lead with integrity. And if I have students who are truly interested in going into potentially politics or leadership in any capacity, it is to always be honest, and to always be genuine, and then work to build those relationships in whatever field they are, to work with the people that they're working with to achieve more. So.
Absolutely. And what website or can we reach you at to learn more about your campaign?
Oh yeah, I kept it simple, and I'm proud of this website because I built this website all by myself, and I had never built a website, so I just kept it simple. It's just bobderuntz.com,
Got it.
and I'm not only proud of the website, but it's got a great deal of information on there that would really give somebody a much better idea of who I am as a person, those things that I've done in leadership capacities that have truly given me the experience. I truly believe that if we have well qualified and well intentioned people who are honest, who will serve in our community, then we all benefit from that. So going to my website will give somebody an idea who I am, those things that I've done. I have my priorities. That's those things that I'd want to achieve in terms of a platform, and an endorsement page. People could get a feel for the wide variety of endorsements that I've been really grateful to get that truly do cross party lines. I've got 30 years of relationships, and I really hope that countywide people are willing, Republican and Democratic, to support my campaign, knowing that they're going to be electing somebody who's honest, who's sincere, who will listen, and is truly in it for the right reasons.
Mhm. Thank you, Bob DeRuntz, running for Porter County Council. You can learn more about his platform at bobderuntz.com. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Gen Z on Leadership with Mr. Bob DeRuntz, running for Porter County Council. He has served an impressive career as a teacher for nearly 30 years. If you want to learn more about Bob, you can go to his social media, which is Bob DeRuntz, or you can go to his website, bobderuntz.com. That is BOBDERUNTZ.com to learn more about him and what he stands for. Additionally, you can check me out, the host Gabriel Gary, on my social medias, and my tag is Gabriel F. Gary. and you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Additionally, you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Gabriel Gary. You can also find my blog and learn more about my podcast as well at GenZandLeadership.com. You can also subscribe to my newsletter on there as well, where I send out all the latest updates for Gen Z Leadership and my blog, The Cincinnatus. Additionally, please leave a rating on whatever streaming service you're using to listen to this episode. It helps the podcast grow in listenership and much more. Additionally, stay tuned for all new episodes as I try to post one a month.